Alright, this is going to be a brief, semi-scripted video demonstrating a DME arc approach. I say semi-scripted because I did spend just a couple of minutes doctoring the approach plate here. As you can see, all of the red lettering on there, that's all my doing. When you take a look at the sim right now, you'll see that it's paused. We are about 5 miles south of the Albuquerque VOR, 13,000 feet and approaching 210 knots. This will be an ILS into runway 8 in KABQ. This would be a great time to pull up that chart. This is a complex instrument procedure, and if you don't have the chart in front of you, it's going to be really difficult to get a grasp of what I'm trying to explain here. So take a few minutes. If you need to pause the sim, it would be best if you actually had that chart, the paper chart, in front of you to look at. It's the ILS or localizer runway 8 into Albuquerque, KABQ. And I'll go ahead and pull the chart up. I cropped a bit of the chart out here, the important piece anyway. We are about 5 miles south of Albuquerque, so we are somewhere around here. And we are headed north towards the Albuquerque VOR presently. We're going to begin this procedure from the Foxu intersection. The Foxu intersection is located along the 023 degree radial, 23 degree radial from Albuquerque at 10 DME. And this is the 10 DME arc. So this is really what we're saying when we're talking about flying the DME arc approach. We're basically just saying that we're going to fly a constant distance, in this case 10 nautical miles, and in this case north of the field, to bring us in for the ILS approach. This particular approach, there are 3 options for an initial approach fix, which is essentially where the initial approach fix is where you would begin the procedure for the landing. You could, and I'm going to circle them here. So you see IAF here at HORG. IAF stands for initial approach fix. You could begin the procedure at Albuquerque, or you could begin the procedure where we're going to begin the procedure at Foxu. Now keep in mind, if you begin the procedure at Albuquerque, what that requires is a procedure turn, not a DME arc. The procedure turn would be flying outbound from Albuquerque, and then this is the procedure turn depicted here. We're not going to do that. We'll save that for another time. We'll begin the procedure at Foxu here. And so our strategy from where we are, somewhere down here, flying north, is to overfly the Albuquerque VOR. So we'll overfly the Albuquerque VOR, and we will take the 023 degree radial outbound from Albuquerque towards the Foxu intersection. Now, we're in the 737. We'll be traveling at about 210 knots. So we can't wait to begin this procedure until we reach Foxu. Otherwise, we'll be well outside of the 10 DME arc by the time we make our initial turn. Our initial turn is a 90 degree turn. And that's pretty typical of DME arc procedures. So once we reach the Foxu intersection, or again prior to the Foxu intersection, we'll probably begin making our 90 degree left hand turn about 8 miles out. That way when we roll out on the appropriate heading there, we should still be right there on that 10 DME arc. So as we reach Foxu, we'll be making a 90 degree left hand turn. So if we're flying outbound on the 023 degree radial, which we will be, our 90 degree left hand turn will bring us around to 293 degrees. Essentially, as we travel around this arc, the strategy is to make course simultaneous, relatively simultaneous, fractionally different adjustments to our heading and our course, the course selector knob. And we do that in 10 degree increments. So after we make that initial 90 degree turn to a heading of 293 degrees, my course selector knob at that point in time will be set to 023 degrees, because remember, we're tracking that outbound from Albuquerque. So at that point I will adjust my course selector knob 10 degrees left to the 013 degree radial. And then at that point, once I pass that 013 degree radial, we will begin orchestra of near simultaneous adjustments to our heading, 10-degree adjustments, to our heading select knob and our course select knob each time we pass the corresponding radial. So essentially, once we pass the 013 degree radial, I will then make a 10-degree left-hand turn, which would bring me to a heading of approximately 283 degrees. And thereafter, I will set my course select knob to the 003 degree radial. Upon passing the 003 degree radial, I will make a 10-degree left-hand turn to a heading of 273 degrees, and I will then adjust my course select knob to the 353 degree radial. Now we will continue to do that all the way along this arc in 10-degree adjustments, all the way through the 313 degree radial until we get to the 270 degree radial, and you'll see that LR in front of the 27. That means lead radial. After we pass the lead radial, the 270 degree radial, we will make our final left-hand turn to intercept the 079 degree localizer. And as always, when we're making a turn to intercept the localizer, we want to be about 30 degrees off that approach course, the approach course being 79 degrees. So we will make a left-hand turn to approximately 109 degrees, which brings us within 30 degrees of that 79 degree approach course. And that's about all the autoflight system can handle. If it's too great an angle between your intercept heading and the front course of the approach, again in this case 79 degrees, the plane, the autoflight system won't pick up on it, will fly through the localizer, and we don't want to do that. So 30 degrees is a good number. So this will make a little bit more sense when you see it, but just in essence, keep in mind the idea here is to make 10-degree adjustments to both our heading and the course select as we travel around this 10 DME arc. Now I'm going to set you up here a little bit by saying there's a lot of art here and a little bit of science. Wind matters. If we have a southerly wind, a significant southerly wind, that wind will tend to push us outside of this 10 DME arc. Juxtapose that to a northerly wind. A significant northerly wind will tend to push us inside of that 10-degree arc. And of course timing has a lot to do with this, and the reason I'm saying this is because you will probably see me make some adjustments to the heading adjustments, some minor heading adjustments. What I mean by that is, if I find myself, well outside of this arc, say if I start to get around 11 miles outside of this arc, instead of making a 10-degree heading adjustment, I might make a 15 or even a 20-degree heading adjustment to bring me back into or more near the 10-degree arc. I won't make any changes to the course adjustments. That will be in 10-degree increments all the way around regardless. And I also may, if I find myself inside of this arc significantly, instead of making a 10-degree course heading adjustment, I may make a 5-degree heading adjustment, or I may just not make any heading adjustment. It really just depends on what we see, and in all likelihood you will see me make both corrections, and I'll talk about that when I'm making those corrections in flight here in just a moment. Now that this looks like a chalkboard in a football locker room, I'm going to clear the chart here and bring us back to the simulator. And momentarily I'm going to unpause the simulator, and again, we're about 5 miles south of Albuquerque. We are headed inbound to Albuquerque. The RMI needle here is pointing direct to the Albuquerque VOR. We will leave the Albuquerque VOR on the 023 degree radial. That's already dialed in. You can see down here in the nav1 radio, Albuquerque's tuned in. Now on the standby, I've got the localizer frequency. The localizer frequency is on the active on the number 2 side, and I've already got the course selector set to 079, which I just did, on the right side. I will keep the procedure slow and low as best I can, and the reason I'll do that is just to give us a little more time to talk about what we're doing. The faster we go, the less time I have to explain it, and less time you'll have to process it. So I'm going to unpause the sim. You'll notice Flight Simulator is going to take a moment to update. I run real time, so it'll take just a moment to reload, and then we'll continue on our way to Albuquerque. Okay, so just inside of 5 miles now, headed direct to Albuquerque. We will leave Albuquerque on the 023 degree radial outbound. Kind of follow along on your chart. And once we leave Albuquerque, we will start a descent. Ultimately, we want to get down to about 8,000 feet by the time we get to that lead radial. We're in no hurry to get there. We've got plenty of time. This is one of the best DME arc approaches to learn on, and the reason is there are a total of 13 different heading and course adjustments for this procedure, and so that gives you a lot of time to practice it, and it gives us a lot of time to correct should we make any errors. You know, should we get inside of that 10 DME arc, or should we get outside of that 10 DME arc? And we'll make some of those corrections. I'm certain of it. Right now we've got a little bit of a southerly, well, a lot of it. We've got a 24 knot southerly wind here. You can see the RMI needle starting to get active. We are flying over the station now, so I'm going to start a turn out to 23 degrees. And we will actually start a turn out to 40 degrees here, and we'll pick up. You'll notice the a little more conservative than that. The HSI needle is very, very sensitive. It becomes more sensitive the closer to the station you are. That's true with the ADF as well. So we're so close to that station right now. We're 2.3 miles away that it's very sensitive. But I've got the VOR armed right now, and the VOR is now captured. So we'll start a descent down to 11,000 feet, and that'll be a level change descent. All of my descents from this point on will be in level change. We're looking to stay within that 10 DME arc, so we're currently at about 4 miles outside of Albuquerque. As I approach about 8 miles, I'll start my 90-degree left-hand turn. And I'm on the VOR, so I can already go ahead and set my, get at 293, so I'll set my heading knob to 293. That'll be our initial heading. And remember, as soon as I make that heading adjustment, I will set my course selector knob to 10 degrees to the left, which will put us at 013 degrees. So coming up on 6.5 miles out. If you see me looking down here, guys, that's me looking at my cheat sheet, and I do that every time I fly a DME arc. I've got some notes written down there. So when things get busy, I'm approaching 8 miles, so I'm going to go ahead and hit heading select and start that left-hand turn. Go to 013 on the course selector knob. Coming up on 11,000 feet. I told you we would need to make those adjustments in heading and course as soon as we pass the corresponding radial. Well, as this HSI needle moves across the center here, that is me passing that 013 degree radial. And so as it moves past center here, I'm crossing the 013 degree radial, and that's when I'll go ahead and make my heading adjustment. I'll do that now to 283 degrees, followed by my course adjustment to 003 degrees. And we're just watching this HSI needle. As it comes across center, we're going to make our heading and course adjustments. You see right now I'm about 10.5 miles, which is just fine, nothing wrong with that, no correction needs to be made for that. 10.6. If we get too far out there, I'll make an adjustment. Okay, so let's go to 270, make a little bit of an adjustment to the heading, and bring our course selector knob, remember, always in 10 degree increments, down to 353. About 10.8 now, which is still good. We've got coming into the 353 degree radial here. We're going to start a descent down to 8,000 feet, level change descent. I'm going to do about a 15 knot heading adjustment now to get back towards that 10 DME arc. So 255 on the heading and 243 on the course selector knob. The course selector knob's always going to be 10 degrees. The heading we can adjust as necessary, but as you see, we're at 11.1 now, so I need to make I need to get us in closer to that station. So I'm going to make a 20 degree heading correction this time around. And as I pass this 343 degree radial, I'll go left to 243 or 233, I believe it was. And I'm going to adjust this to 10 degrees left to 333. just call it an even 230 here on the heading. Bring us back in closer to the station. We've got the 333 degree radial coming in here. Okay, so 220 on the heading. 323 on the course selector knob. And you'll see we're coming back in towards the station now. So I want to be a little bit conservative now with my heading changes because I don't want to get inside of that 10 DME arc either. Got the 323 degree radial coming in here. .5 miles out now. Perfect. Can't beat it. And we're still trending towards the station. I'm going to hold off on my heading correction, but I am going to 313 now on the course selector knob. And maybe 5 degrees on the heading. This is where the arc comes in, guys. Course selector is easy. It's always 10 degrees. The default for the heading is 10 degrees, but again, kind of got to play with it a little bit. That's where the arc comes in. We're passing the 313 degree radial now. I'm going to leave the heading as is. We'll adjust the course selector knob to 303. The 303 degree radial is coming in here. We're looking for that lead radial of 270 degrees. That's when we'll make our final turn. 5 degrees on the heading correction there, and to 293 on the course selector knob. Right on that 10 DME arc right now. The 293 degree radial is coming into play here, coming across center. Slow the aircraft down a little bit. And here's our 10 degree heading correction. 10 degree course correction. That's 283 now. Remember, the lead radial is 270, so my next course change would be to 273. Because the lead radial is 270, I'm just going to change the course to 270. So it's instead of doing 2 more, I'm just going to do 1 more course change. So I'll go to 190 on my heading now. That's 10 degrees to the left, and the lead radial of 270. As that 270 degree radial comes across here, I will make my final left-hand turn to 109 degrees to intercept the localizer. And that 270 degree radial is coming in right now. Go ahead and make that turn here as we come into that 270 degree radial to 109 degrees. 079 is the front course, and I'll switch over to the localizer frequency here, 1.1.9, and arm the localizer. So you can see now the localizer's armed. And localizer's active. Localizer's captured. I can set runway heading into the heading select knob 081, it looks like. And since I've intercepted the localizer, I can go ahead and select the approach mode. I'm just going to dial in Albuquerque here in my nav to temporarily. I want to know when I'm passing the Albuquerque VOR. That's when we should begin picking up the... Actually, let me take that back. When we pass Albuquerque VOR, we will begin to descent down to 7,400 feet. So I'm gonna deselect the approach mode there. I have one more descent to make here, passing the Albuquerque VOR down to 7,400 feet. Then I'll arm the approach mode. I could do it now, there's nothing wrong with it. I'll know I'm passing the Albuquerque VOR because the RMI needle here, that's currently pointing direct towards Albuquerque, we're 3.4 miles out by the way, it'll start to do a 180 as I pass it. So it always points towards the station you've got tuned in. So as I pass it, it's going to do a 180 on me and point directly behind me. And at that point I'll start a level change descent down to 7,400 feet. Again, I want to reiterate, we could have left the approach mode armed. Would have been nothing wrong with that at all. And you see, we're starting to pass the Albuquerque VOR, so we'll do our level change descent down to 7,400 feet. We've got the glide slope is active right now. And what I didn't do this. We'll do it now. Put those exterior lights on. Good thing landing procedures is not the focus of this video. And we can get rid of that Albuquerque VOR now and tune the right side to the ILS. Okay, so we've acquired 7,400 feet. Now I'll arm the approach button. I like to get flaps 5 out just as I'm about to intercept flying to that glide slope. This is a plane, the 800 is even worse, but this is a plane that I think if you guys fly it will realize or can attest to the fact that it can be difficult to descend and maintain control of your speed. So pass the outer marker, gears down, engine ignition to continuous. Start bringing the speed down. As we approach the flaps 5 minimum maneuvering speed here, I'll go to flaps 15. Can happen now. Arm those speed brakes. Lower the MCP speed down to the flaps 15 minimum maneuvering speed. And as I approach the flaps 15 minimum maneuvering speed, I'll go to my landing flaps. In this case, it'll be flaps 30. Flaps 30 set and adjust my MCP out speed to my ref speed. The idea here, guys, is to be fully configured, fully stabilized on the approach, I should say, by no later than 1,000 feet. And we'll definitely hit that. So we're on the localizer, we're on the glide slope. Speed's approaching VREF, coming up on 1,300 feet. The auto flight system off, auto throttle system off. Landing checks, gear down 3 green, flaps 30 green light, speed brakes on, ignition continuous. Landing checks complete. And we are stable on the approach. Our goal here, as always, will be to pass that runway threshold at about 50 feet above the ground and VREF plus whatever wind correction. I'm not seeing any winds right now, so right there at VREF speed will be fine. Inside of 30 feet, I'll start to gradually pull the power all the way back. And inside of about 15 feet or so, I'll start a gentle flare up to about a 4-degree nose up. Deck angle of about 4 degrees on touchdown. Main gear touches down, we'll get the reversers out. Inside of 70 knots, reversers go idle. And inside of 60 knots, we will manually brake the aircraft. There's 50 feet. Power's coming off. Reverse. Fly that nose wheel down to the ground. I'll end this video, guys, as soon as we taxi off the active. There's 70 knots. Reversers are out. 60 knots, manually brake the aircraft. Actually, I'll come to a full stop and then I'll just kind of recap what we've done on that procedure, and then we'll end it. Crossing the hold short point here, I can start to clean the aircraft up. You'll notice I leave the retractable lights extended. There's no need to, if you're going to make another flight, there's no need to retract those retractable lights. It just puts extra wear and tear on them. You're going to use them again momentarily anyway, if you're making another flight. Okay, we're going to come to full stop here. I'll set the park brake and kind of recap a little bit about what we did. I really encourage you to try that approach here into Albuquerque. You see there's 13 different heading and course adjustments, and so you have plenty of time to practice it. It's a good one. It's a long runway, and so I encourage you to practice it. I'm going to bring up the chart here one more time and just kind of recap. Essentially what we're looking to do, guys, is make near simultaneous adjustments to the heading followed by the course. They call it turn 10, twist 10. So you turn 10 degrees left and then you twist your course selector knob 10 degrees left. So that's kind of what they would say is turn 10, twist 10. This procedure would be the same if you were coming from the north and you were overflying Albuquerque coming over here to Horg. You'd just basically be reversing everything. But for us, remember that initial turn outbound on the 23 degree radial as we approach Falksu, it's a 90 degree left hand turn. Set that course selector to the 013 degree radial, and then from that point forward, as we pass each corresponding radial, we make a 10 degree heading adjustment and a 10 degree course adjustment. We realize that the course adjustment is set in stone. It's always a 10 degree course adjustment, and then the heading adjustment is really, we're shooting for 10 degrees, but that's really dependent on a whole lot of things, and most notably would be dependent on the wind. So I hope you enjoyed it, hope you learned something from it, and I hope you take some time to, there aren't very many of these around in the U.S. anymore, and this is the reason that there aren't very many of these around. Let me see if it's still in my, I bet it's not in there anymore. It's not in there anymore. Well, I would have showed you that. You can plug this in. There's a couple different ways you can plug this approach into your FMC. And of course, that's no fun, which is why we did it manually. But the NGX will fly this approach near flawlessly. You can plug it in to your flight management computer. You can use place-bearing distance inputs into your legs page, or you can just plug in the procedure from Falksu, which is what I did here, just to have that reference up on the navigation display. All right, that wraps it up. Until next time, thanks for watching.